Everyone has their own point of view of what it is, and eventually performance marketer comes into the room and says none of this works.
The campaigns that get a lot of people to talk, it is not necessarily the campaign that is working in the favor of the business.
Otherwise, you will go on mimicking other brands and you won't be able to come up with something new.
Ads alone, it's not going to build a brand. Ad is one of the formats of building the brand.
Now in Google Analytics, you will be able to see it. They kind of run data-driven attribution, but that won't give you the correct picture. If you don't know on what basis they have designed it, it will be very difficult to interpret. They may be biased also.
If you tell clients, this is the platform, this is going to be your CAC, or this is going to be a CPM, and this is what you're going to expect, immediately they're like, no, put all that money into Meta. That's what happens.
Meta or Google Ads, do they speak what they really show in the dashboard? Do they really make sense when you do business from a long-term perspective?
One of our posts went viral. In B2B, it is hard to get something to go viral. I was just trying to look up most of our metrics to see if any of that metric had an uptick. Did people visit my website? Did they visit my LinkedIn page? Is anybody talking about my brand? Is anybody tagging my brand? Nada. Nothing.
But I think even the organic side of the platform can be better. I think there's too much cringe in there. And then you have to play that game for you to get ahead, because now algorithm recognizes that as the standard.
So if you observe the pattern between everything that we're talking about, what is that we're calling as an ad may not exist.
Great. Deepan, welcome back. My first ever guest on this series that I started. I just looking back, a lot of things sort of were set in motion because you agreed and you came on, and I think brings a full circle back. I think this is like 25th or 26th episode I'm doing, so it's nice to sort of get you back. Ashwin, I think we've spoken a lot of times on video and call, etc. Never had a chance to meet. Great meeting you for the first time. I was November of last year, I was at a Meta event, and it was a performance marketing summit. I came back like with a lot of new thoughts and say point of views on where things are going. Since then, I've been just sort of researching on what the market is like, etc. And then finally, I said, now I have enough material and enough curiosity that I want to sort of poke holes on and want to speak to people who are doing things in this line of work. Having known you, I mean, there's nobody else I would have called. And then I've always followed you and seen the sort of work that you've been doing. So I said, and I know the fact that both of you know each other really well. So I thought, why not get you guys on the show and sort of quench this curiosity that I have, right? Before we start, Ashwin, just quickly, for people who probably may not be familiar with you, a brief background about yourself, and we'll start from there.
Yeah, so I kind of finished my mechanical engineering in 2010. Worked in a hardcore, mechanical engineering work. Worked with a company called JK Paper Mills, you might be aware of. Then thought of joining MBA, joined it for power management, and after 1 year I realized I am not the right person to do this particular job. And then kind of somehow I finished my MBA and came to Bangalore and joined a startup called Flip Class. So that was the first time when I kind of did the first sales job. Okay. But while doing this, I kind of figured out certain problems of customers. And then I kind of told to my CEO that, hey, these are the problems people are facing. Then he said, why don't you solve the problem? Then he told me, okay, you work with the CRM team, find the flaws, fix the solution. Then found the problems, and most of it were related to the content communication on the landing pages or on the website. Then kind of got interested into content, and then kind of started working with SEO. And then there was a performance marketing manager who kind of, leaving the organization. And my CEO took some interviews and he was kind of not satisfied with them. And he told me, like, why don't you do this? So that's how I kind of came to the world of performance marketing. From there, everything started. Like, I didn't take any course or something like that. I started learning from blogs, basic content, whatever I find on internet, I just read them, learned them, burnt my fingers. And over a period of time, I realized like, okay, I mean, edtech is done. So let's move to some new industry. So then I kind of entered to a company called Jibsoft. And there, uh, I kind of didn't work for long. Then I entered it to Webinza. So there I met Deepan. Okay. So there we did some fabulous work, worked with a lot of brands, did some amazing work. I worked there for almost a year and a half, then got an opportunity to work with Google. In Google, I was working for two brands, Amazon and Flipkart. So managing their campaigns, Big Billion Day sales, Great Indian Sale, and other Amazon Prime Day, etc. Apart from that, in Amazon itself, I kind of worked with other verticals as well, like Amazon Prime Video, music, Kindle, then Amazon app itself, Amazon B2B. So that kind of gave me, one entire spectrum of understanding, like how each of these business units work and at scale how that can be done. I worked there for almost a year and a half, then got a very good opportunity in terms of working with marketing technology related work. So, mostly related to tracking, then how to measure the outcome of marketing, for example, multi touch attribution, marketing mix modelings. How can you design them? How can you infer the insights, whatever marketing data that you get, like on Meta or Google Ads? Do they speak what they really show in the dashboard? Like the number of conversions you see on dashboard, do they really make sense when you do business from a long term perspective? So that kind of gave me a new perspective, thinking, how can be the communication of performance marketing be used in several ways. Okay, so every time we think like the ROS is this, do this. So we are kind of focused on the dashboard related things, but how these insights can be married with the performance marketing dashboard and how you can unleash the power of performance marketing at a real sense. That is what that is what I do here. Okay, I mean, in a nutshell, this is what I am.
Right.
Thank you.
Interestingly, what was the first designation you were hired for? What did it say? What did the designation say before you obviously started in performance? The first marketing role.
So it was assistant manager marketing.
It was very broad, I presume. Like
Yeah.
anything to be solved.
So, so they told me that we will shift your roles, but first they said me like we don't have any marketing roles as of, so you have to do sales, and I was very scared because I didn't know English well. Okay, and even I'm not very good English right now. Still, kind of, I told my CEO that sir, I'm not very good with English. He said no, tum kar loge. Okay, and I said okay, let's do it. But I was not able to make any sales. So then eventually they told me like okay, in 1 week they understood like I'm not going to do sales, put him in post sales. So there I kind of understood a lot of things. Like when I started speaking with the real customers, right, who are using the product. And then from there I tried to understand, oh, these are the problems people are facing. Let's solve these problems. So that kind of gave me a lot of confidence.
Right.
And that really helped me in terms of uh, understanding performance marketing from a customer's view. Okay, not as a marketer kind of thing.
Right. Yeah. So I noticed you smiled when I asked about designation. We covered this the first time when you were here about
Yeah.
starting in sales,
That
and I
makes
think
sense,
that
yeah.
impact that it has in general. But anyway, I'm not going to ask Deepan this, of course, because we have this whole other episode in which I think we have covered this extensively. So for those who are keen to know, I think you should just check that episode out. I think you get a good sense of Deepan's background, etc. I want to ask both of you, if you remember the how it was for you maybe 6 years back, roughly. I wouldn't go all the way back to the time you started, but maybe 6, 7 years back, when somewhere there was a certain sense of maturity that was there in performance as a field. From then to now, what's the biggest difference in how you spend your time at work? If there's something that you can say is like one thing has changed the most.
I think we used to spend a lot of time on the dashboards back in the day. Right? What I mean by dashboards is the ad dashboards, be it Google Campaign Manager, LinkedIn Business Manager, Facebook Business Manager. That's where we used to spend a lot of time. In fact, almost about 95% of the time used to go there. Not a lot of options that we have today in terms of autonomous bidding strategies, conversion tracking. None of that used to be there. A lot of that things used to be manual. So 95% of the time used to go there. Now it's completely opposite. We spend probably about 5-10% of our time on the ad dashboards, about 20-30% time on the analytics, and the remaining 50% is spent on the business data, which is on the BI platform, to truly understand the contribution of performance marketing to the business, right? Because I think that is the biggest change. Gone back in the day, even if you were getting clicks, leads, landing page traffic, and stuff like that, you could get away for a very, very long time, right? But not anymore, because I think there is a sound enough understanding of performance marketing in the industry. Gone are the days where CMOs were only offline. Most of them understand performance marketing these days. So you can't get away with those vanity metrics anymore. So you're being asked tough questions most of the time. Okay, you've generated leads, how did it contribute to the business? How many of them became customers? What was the revenue out of it? So you need to bring the right traffic, right lead that is going to contribute to the business. And hence the 50% of the time is being spent on business data, and then taking the right calls on what campaigns you need to be running. Yeah.
Would you say it's the same for you?
Yes, exactly. So in terms of business data means I will try to break it further. So for example, if we got 1,000 customers in a month from our performance marketing campaigns, and we know how they split, like let's say Google, Meta, programmatic, native, etc. Then for each set of segments, we try to see how much revenue they bring in. Revenue they bring in means if it is a SaaS, then that is like month 0, month 1, month 2, like 90 days, then 6 months, that we see. If you go to a financial kind of setup, then they say like MOB 0, MOB 1, MOB 12, and they see kind of what the profitability. And profitability is also divided into 3 parts. One is the cost at which you have acquired. The second is the kind of offers that you give, that you discount. And then the third part is, even after giving them discount, you try to engage with them, because if you stop engaging with them, there is a possibility that they may drop out from the system. You want to keep them engaged. So there is a cost that is associated with it. So we add that as well. And then we see, what is the profitability that you get. So over a period of time, you will be able to find, okay, for Google ads in 9 months, I'm kind of getting break even. For programmatic, let's say 12 months. For Meta, let's say it is 6 months. And it also depends on the type of product for which you are acquiring the customer. So there are certain products where you kind of sell it at a loss just to gather the customer's information, and then you kind of sell them the big things. So I don't know, there is a tractor company, it's based out of, I think, Rajasthan, and they are kind of doing a business of some 100 crore. Their tractors cost around 3 lakhs. It starts from 3 lakhs to 10 lakhs, but they sell a torch which costs only some 700 or 800 rupees, like the big torch with good focus. Why they are doing? Because they want to be known for that brand. So whenever a farmer will use the torch, they will see that this is the brand, and then they sell the bigger product. So they sell these torches on Amazon, but they sell the real product on their own website. So even so for these kind of activities also, you need to see how these kind of products are driving your revenue. So you need to identify like this particular product. So if you have got 100 products, then which are the products that are getting you customers, and then you are able to sell it the high price product. Or you have got a product, you have got a set of products which are in the same range, and you want to understand which is the high selling product, and based on that you change your communication or whatever it
I think
is. So
Ashwin summed up the biggest industry challenge as of today, that you try to make every product work through performance marketing, but the key is to understand, I mean, what we call as product channel fit. Like, there are products that will sell well through a specific channel, and you do that well, you'll get much better scale, much better unit economics compared to trying everything that you have through a channel. So there are different ways to get customers, and there are different ways to keep them engaged in the ecosystem, thereby increasing the lifetime value, which will eventually come back to the unit economics of the business. Yeah.
And this, right? So, like this, what you just spoke of, this
Yeah.
finding this fit. There's no formula or a sort of a recipe for this, right? You have to get your hands dirty
course.
and find out.
Yeah.
You might have some category knowledge which you can bring from elsewhere, but otherwise you just have to try and figure. Isn't it?
Absolutely.
And-
Most
and-
of the time, you wouldn't give your performance marketing to a fresher.
Correct.
So ideally, you're talking to somebody who comes with some level of
Exactly.
experience in terms of channel and product.
Exactly. There are a lot of brands today who, for example, are getting people on board who are not that experienced, right? Especially startups, etc. Who would probably hire somebody, and then, like how you guys at some point were figuring it out in maybe a decade ago or so. Today, someone's doing that at a smaller scale in a different organization. For someone like that, it is also, I assume, very imperative that they spend a lot of time on dashboard, in whatever capacity possible, to get your fundamentals right. And the question I have is, today a lot of these things are getting automated. So are we at some level not having the say opportunity to learn probably like what the previous generation of performance marketers learned from? And is that real? Firstly, is that true? Or, and if it is, is it creating any kind of difference in what quality of marketers are getting in the market today? Or is it like not making any difference?
So it's yes and no. I mean, of course, if you have done everything yourself, there's a lot of context towards everything. For example, let's say there are automated forms of advertising today
Yeah.
within Google, within Facebook. Now, if you're starting your learning journey from here, you don't really know what happens behind the scenes. But if you have seen all the way from manual bidding, setting up the campaign yourself, you probably would understand what is going into it,
Right.
Unless the new marketer, the young marketer is trying to learn all of them on their own. So there's pros and cons to it. The con of that is, a lot of knowledge is sort of useless, because none of that exists anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't need that anymore. But some form of context, feeds into the experience, which will help you take the right call. I know we are talking about automated, right? It's not. You still need to have the ability to read the data, right? The manual work that was going into creating a campaign, that is being automated, and for that you never needed a human. It's just that we didn't have the right tech back in the day, so we had to do all of that ourselves.
True.
So there is pros and cons to the approach, but I think you don't necessarily need to know the history.
Fair.
Yeah.
Fair. By that extension, now you spoke on automation, right? And that's the sort of the glaring sort of insight for me, being someone who's selling this service, right? At reasonable scale, I would call it. It's not. I still don't think it's at that level of scale as probably business models were 10 years ago, but there's a reasonable scale of solving it for multiple brands. My realization is that, like you said, half of the things now are getting automated and you don't need as much human workforce. So what is, if you were to look at from say 2025 to 2030, what do you think is the future of ads from that lens? What are sort of few things that you think are going to change the industry? I think few things have been talked about in terms of cookieless world, and how already certain platform operations are automated. What else do you think is going to happen?
So this is going to exist in some, whatever is there today in the form of advertising, it's going to exist, right? How brands go about creating that, what is the format of content that the user prefer, may change. Some of the newer channels may emerge, and we may have to adapt to it. But in terms of what is going to fundamentally change from our perspective, from marketers' perspective, pretty much every manual work that we do today, which doesn't necessarily require intelligence, it'll be done. And it's not necessarily 2030. It is happening as we speak. It'll be fully done by next year, right? Where I see marketers are playing a critical role is uh, your business context. It's nearly impossible for the channel to get your business context. Now, what I mean by that is, when you further break it down, there are a lot of nuances towards what works within a company, what grows a company, what type of a customer base that you have, who is more profitable for you, and all of that business context, right? And then connecting it back to what you're seeing in the form of campaign data. That is a skill that is going to be critical anyways. But everything else, for example, setting up a campaign, setting up tracking, to an extent making creatives. I mean, I was reading, you were there in the summit, where one of the biggest statement that Mark made last year is, all you have to do is just come and give me a budget, tell me a website, and we will do everything else.
Right.
And it's truth. Performance Max, Google Performance Max is that,
Yeah.
and Facebook will make it happen. You don't necessarily have to do anything within the dashboard where you're spending a lot of time today.
True.
So what you as a marketer need to do is ensure that the dashboard is doing the right thing for your business with a lot of business context that you have, right? And whatever budget decisions that you're taking on specific channels, specific campaigns, specific stories, the gut feel of a marketer, the instinct of the marketer is where I think the industry is heading towards. If somebody has to lean on to marketing expertise, it is for the contextual expertise and not necessarily for ability to set up a campaign or tracking for that matter. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I would like to add few things. So Deepan covered most of the things in terms of marketing. Okay. In terms of technology, what I feel is, number one, within 2 to 3 years, Google is going to reconcile everything in terms of this third party cookies, whatever it is. And eventually Performance Max in Google Ads will become the mainstream. Okay. And what I feel, a different type of communication will emerge. Basically, in this age of AI, what I feel is most of the things will become conversational over a period of time. So there, what I feel is some sort of new format will come into picture. It could be either video. I don't know. I mean, this is what will happen eventually in the next 2 to 3 years. And then what I feel is, if you check the Meta's world, the Facebook audience is getting bit older. Okay, and Insta and WhatsApp is something, it has got audiences who are at a lower age group, and business are going to be driven by them. So mostly in terms of format improvement, these are the two platforms where you are going to see most of the technical work that is going to happen. If you see the native world, okay, so more or less what I feel is interest kind of targeting will kind of, I mean, it will go out over a period of time, and there will be more in terms of contextual, like Deepan said. Okay, so something like contextual targeting, something will emerge for native. And what you will see is in terms of influencer. Okay, so mostly performance based influencers, for that particular world, I think programmatic will come up with some format through which these influencers will be able to make ad insertion or something with the help of programmatic, and that is going to evolve. And OOH, what you see, the ads that you see, digital ads, which are not actually linked with the digital platforms, you will see a kind of integration for that, and you will start seeing measurement of them. And in terms of connected TVs, okay, you will start seeing better results from there. Okay, in terms of branding, may not be performance focused, but in terms of branding, you are going to see a lot of evolution from that side.
Like some of it I can already envision. I think it's like already seeing some change in the market in that direction. In fact, my gut feeling today is that Meta is now positioned as a platform where it is a creative first or communication first performance platform, where the old method of just doing targeted communication and then figuring out what creative work would work is no longer the ecosystem. The script is sort of flipped now, and I think they're also realizing it, and they're actively pushing themselves to be taken as that sort of a platform. And I think the advertisers are encouraged to think that way. But the problem I see in the market today is that there isn't enough talent to solve for that, because it's a new practice. It will get solved, and I think it will go through a lot of change, like how when digital came we disrupted everything mainline, right? And I think that's going to happen, where I think organic or creative communication, as you would call it, will have to evolve, and performance will have to evolve with it. And I think that's already happening. And I don't know how much of it you guys are seeing today from the point of view that you have, but I'm assuming creative strategy is a huge part of what you do in performance.
It is. It is. And in fact, I would say it's more than 50%. If you don't have your creative strategy right, you're unlikely to have good performance on your campaigns. Maybe you're accumulating a lot of vanity metrics. Maybe the people who are asking, expecting things out of you, the expectation is not a lot. But let's say if the expectation is for you to deliver actual ROI on the spends that you're doing, creative strategy, it is the main deal today. I mean, if you don't have good engaging creatives, good engaging videos, you're unlikely to have good performance, irrespective of the value proposition that you have.
Right.
Yeah.
Is there in your minds, is there a formula? Is there a method? Is there a process to solve for it? Like, for example, I interacted with probably 50 brands, between the time I was at the summit and I came back, and I was just calling up people and speaking to them. From that time, I also have met with a lot of agencies who are specializing in different aspects of creative communication within performance. So I did a whole podcast on this about UGC, right? My takeaway from all of it was that everyone is doing what they believe is right. Some of it is working, some of it is not. Even the stuff that is working, and I had this chat with somebody recently about how a lot of the communication that we feel today from a UGC perspective, for example, that is working on Meta, is the communication that is targeted at a age group of 20 to 30, 35 or so, where it is relying on trends, relying on a new format of edit style or fonts, etc. And it's sort of trying to mimic what is working. And there's a challenge in that for me as a marketer, because I feel invariably if I use that for my brand is mimicking somebody else's look and feel and touch and etc. Right? And I'm now starting to see brands who are approaching saying, hey, this is our guideline, this is our communication style. Can you create a communication that works for performance, but inspired from what we stand for from a mainline lens? It's a Herculean task, honestly, if you ask me, because everyone has their own point of view of what it is, and eventually performance marketer comes into the room and says none of this works, right? So it's a challenge. I don't know what has been your experience dealing with that.
It's been the same, and it continues to be there. The larger the organizations, the number of policies are higher, the number of stakeholders are higher. So even at lower the rung, there are people who want to experiment with newer content formats. Even within the scheme of things of brand, right? Like you're sticking to your color, font, there's a certain tone that you want to communicate. Let's say you've figured all of that out, you've created a template, and within that, you've figured out a newer content format to communicate. You still have people, who will not say yes to it. There are some brands, who've tried solving it by going after person-led approach. What I mean by that is person-led or presenter-led, where you pick up a few people that is really close to your brand personality, and you continue to show up through them, right? Without necessarily getting into logo, colors, and scheme of. So, with the form of a person that you're trying to communicate. Some of the brands that I've tried solving, this is the ways I've seen them getting around. For example, one good larger brand that I've tried solving, it was Max Life. I've seen them trying to do it, and I can see the pain of the person who actually did it on the other side, that I wanted to try a new content format because I want the performance campaigns to work, but I am still sort of sticking to the brand limit. So the challenge continues to be there, unless the leader of the brand, whether the CM or head of marketing who is taking that final call, if they're not bold enough, this challenge will continue to exist.
Right. Ashwin, what's your experience on this?
It is the same, and in fact, it is very high for me. Okay, but what really worked is, like earlier I have said, so instead of focusing more on creative and content, what you can do is you can understand how your business is growing. For example, you look at your CRM, you look at your business data, and kind of build certain segments. I'm not talking about buyer persona or something like that. What I want to tell is, okay, between 20 to 30 age group, whoever audience you have acquired in the past, like take last 2 years of data, they're pretty recent, and then you see what kind of traits, what kind of purchase behaviors they are having, and what you do is take that as an inspiration and try to build content around that, so that whatever customer you are going to acquire, right, through your performance marketing campaigns, you will get good quality customers, because the communication what you are doing is around what your actual business gives you. Okay, for example, people are coming to your website and buying certain products in this price point, and these type of products are being purchased. So what you build is, okay, you talk with them, you understand why they are buying these products, you get to know what are the pain points, and then based on that you build content that will help you win this. Otherwise you will go on mimicking other brands and you won't be able to come up with something new. So what I feel is this is something which will solve your problem.
I'll just close the loop on the question that you asked, right, which is brand building, right? I think we need to come out of the shell that we are in, saying that brand building only happens through the sort of creative assets that you create for performance marketing. There's this concept of frequency. For example, when you go on a TV during IPL, you could of course stick to your brand guideline, because you're going to play the same thing multiple number of times, so that you're trying to create that register a memory amongst the user about what is the perception they want to build about your brand, right? Digital is a completely different spectrum. The way they consume content, what kind of content they want to see, they want to engage with. You could actually experiment with a lot, right? Because ads alone it's not going to build a brand. Ad is one of the formats of building the brand. Your customer touch point, your product quality, the experience, the benefit that the customer is going to get. A lot of these things, put together and come and form what is called as a brand, right? I think people who are very rigid about I can't do this, I have a brand framework and stuff like that, they're not really meant for this digital world.
True.
Yeah.
Very true.
Yeah.
You spoke of frequency. It's such a underrated metric in all forms of digital communication, because it's also sometimes like a problem as well. Like I had an incident recently. Flipkart Minutes is running a particular campaign on Twitter, right? I don't know how many people have seen it, but I think it shows a couple having ice cream and then something like that.
Yeah.
But the frequency is so high on it. Probably because I use a lot of Zepto for coffee and stuff. So I am right audience. So targeting somewhere is right, but it's unnaturally high. And on Twitter, because we're not used to seeing ads on Twitter, it keeps showing up to the point where I literally tweeted back to them saying, can someone switch down the frequency cap on this? And after that, I'm not seeing it. So I think they blocked me. But there's a nice little thing I realized. But on this note, like you said, that people-led communication has increased. And there's this great sort of quote from David Ogilvy, where I think he ran an ad back in, I think, the 60s, using one of the US former first ladies. I forgot who it was, but it was a famous campaign. And he came back out of it saying people loved the ad, people spoke about the ad, but the product didn't sell, because he felt the celebrity overpowered the product. I feel a lot of that is happening in this space right now.
Yes.
So while I discover the ad, right, but after watching the ad, I'm like, my next action is let me follow this creator, not let me follow the brand. A lot of that is happening. So I don't know if it's only me. In fact, literally my team and I have been sharing reels over the last week, and I literally set up a time on Tuesday to just discuss this, because I have this hypothesis where I want to know if I'm the only person.
No, you're not. See, if you draw parallel to campaigns that win a lot of awards, right? I'm 100% sure 99% of those ads never really contributed to business, right?
Yeah.
Most likely the business, the ad or campaign that has tangible numbers to showcase or direct response communication, just like the Flipkart minutes campaign that you may have seen, right? It's very straightforward. You have seen me somewhere and you did not perform that action that I wanted you to. I'm showing up again just to remind you. That will very likely to influence, okay, I was checking this out. Let me just click through and buy that product, right? It's measurable very clearly, right? Everything else is, it's sort of, you're doing it with the belief that it is going to work for the business. So going back to your belief, it is absolutely right. And the campaigns that get a lot of people to talk, it is not necessarily the campaign that is working in the favor of the business. I have seen a number of campaigns that has gotten millions of views, posts that went viral, right? To give you an example, in a couple of days back, one of our posts went viral, like real viral. In B2B, it is hard to get something to go viral, okay? And I was just trying to look up most of our metrics to see if any of that metric had an uptick.
Business metric?
No, not even, forget about business. Did people visit my website?
Right.
Did they visit my LinkedIn page? Right? Is there any uptick in any metric? Is anybody talking about my brand? Is anybody tagging my brand? Is anybody, while they're sharing, there are a lot of shares. Did you mention my brand? Nada, nothing. Right? And the influencers, people who use influencers, right? I know people go gaga over influencers. If you go look through the comment section of these influencers, exactly what you said, Sanand, happens there. Rarely any mention of customers talking about the brand. Everybody, especially if it's a female creator, I don't want to, make about this, right? People who are good looking, model like, and you go check one of their, brand affiliated posts, you will only see comments about the person, whether it's a man or a woman, right?
It's the same with celebs also, by the way.
Same.
Because I think any known face, this happens.
Exactly. So many times we tend to believe that I hired this celebrity and it worked. It is not only because of the celebrity. It is market demand. People wanted the product. Maybe you had a good product and it is endorsed by a celebrity. It adds up to it. Maybe, let's say you're buying an insurance policy, right? You are considering 4 different brands. And for this one brand, everything came together. You saw them during the IPL. They have a good pricing. And there is your favorite celebrity endorsing the product. Then the sale happens.
Right.
The thing is, it's very difficult to tie it all up together. You might just think that, okay, we've got Sachin as an ambassador. And it worked. So maybe we should continue doing that.
Right. So now this is Meta's unique ecosystem, right? That creative plays such a powerful role. What is Google's sort of mode or their plan for the next sort of, because I think while they have, I think what I think is one of the most powerful platforms from I think it is the number one video platform, more powerful than any OTTs today if you look at it. It's still not leveraged as much for performance marketing. Right? So people still haven't cracked, and also because YouTube advertising is a little expensive in comparison. So is there something unexplored there? You think there's any opportunities, or do you think Google has something in its up its sleeve that we haven't seen yet?
Google is massive today in performance marketing. I didn't know why you
had that. I'm saying from a creative lens, because you're saying that if performance is becoming creative led, and you said 60% is today creative, I don't think Google still has that infra for you to deploy creative at that scale, right? Or at that, say,
absolutely, because Google doesn't have that property where you spend a lot of time during the day in one platform.
Correct.
Google search, you might use it a couple of times. Google Map while commuting, YouTube while you're watching video. These are not necessarily the platform like an Instagram where you spend a lot of time throughout the day. So Google has never been able to crack the frequency piece of it. They tried doing it with the help of YouTube, but the problem is you don't go to YouTube as many times, the number of times you go to Instagram.
And YouTube Premium is a great product.
It's a great product, which killed advertising on YouTube.
I'm on it. Just say
I'm both ways. As a consumer, I like it. As a marketer,
exactly. I have 2 profiles, work and personal. Whenever I go home, I switch. But the point is, at home, at work, I need to consume because it's part of work. I do it. But at some point, I also felt when YouTube Premium had come through, quality of advertising on YouTube also fell a little bit. And it encouraged me more to spend more time on Premium. But anyway, regardless.
YouTube advertising is extremely intrusive, right? Because you're going there to watch a specific thing. On Instagram, you're actually killing your time. You're okay watching any type of content that is coming up in front of you. YouTube, you're going to watch a specific thing, most of the behavior, and somebody is interrupting you. So the YouTube advertising, even though Google, I work with Google very closely, right? There are a lot of studies. We have run a lot of closed groups, tests and stuff. These campaigns never work. We've run, at least, is it helping in brand? Do people recall? No. My understanding of that, I mean, maybe it works in real high scale. If you're on Amazon, you're doing Great Indian Festival,
Yeah.
and there is massive noise everywhere, and on YouTube also there is a massive noise. It adds up to things that is happening in the other places of the ecosystem, right? And it is not necessarily only YouTube that is driving results, right?
Exactly.
So that is one thing I think Google tried to crack it with Google Plus, but they shut it down.
I really don't think they have that social in their DNA.
They don't need, if you ask me,
No,
right?
but they tried. I think now they've sort of realized that it's in their DNA. I think
Maybe.
nobody has cracked social other than Facebook, is what I feel. Snapchat, little bit here and there. Music, I mean, TikTok, obviously, but
Yeah.
we really don't have context as users. But I feel the social media is a very DNA game, which I feel some people have it, some don't. I think Google is more Microsoft, more tech, B2B. Like, I think they will find, I think most of their revenue or their prospects, I think, lie in solutions that are there. Plus this ecosystem of search that they've built around.
Actually, not. It is search is everything
Yeah.
for Google, right? And because they have search, and there is no alternative.
Yeah.
They probably did not build the muscle in the other areas. And I mean, they did try. Maybe just like you mentioned, that it was not in the DNA of the company.
It's like, it's like Meta doing Threads.
Huh.
I don't think Threads is working. I think from the time they launched till now, significantly they're losing users.
Yeah.
I feel it's a DNA thing.
Yeah.
And Twitter is unique as Twitter. There's only been one. I mean, obviously it has gone through many changes now.
Yeah,
It's a different environment altogether. But I feel that it's again a DNA thing. I feel.
Yeah.
Yeah, and why Google is there? Because they have the browser game in this. Okay, so if you see Chrome browser, it almost takes up 70% of the market share across the globe.
Google's ecosystem is mind blowing. Many
And-
people
and
just
even-
talk about the
And
Google
even
search
if you
all the
go
time.
to Safari, the default browser is Google there.
Yeah.
So Google pays a hefty
yeah.
amount of money there. So that's why they're dominating the space in search for about 95%. If you combine Chrome and Safari share across the OS browser share, it will cover almost 95%.
Yeah. One thing I'm noticing is that a lot of brands who do branded content on YouTube, I think they're really starting to study YouTube data well, and I think they're figuring out how to place in-feed ads with regards to YouTube at least at the right intersection. So I've noticed, I think 3 or 4 of the brands that I really follow and I keep an eye on, that just when the video picks up and I'm a little bit more engaged, and the ad, the perfect 10-seconder drops, right? And I'm okay with now because I'm hooked into it, versus a 5-seconder which played as a pre-roll, which I sort of felt I was waiting to sort of skip. But now because I'm into the narrative and this video is now plugged in a place, and I think now contextually they're getting it better.
Yeah.
Especially if you're, but the problem with that also is that decision of that advertising actually does not happen on platform. It happens outside based on platform data, but is put. So I think it's becoming like TV, which is what I think YouTube is sort of
good
eating its share.
influence channel.
Yeah.
Right. And not necessarily creating a demand channel.
No,
Yeah.
not really. So I think, but I think with the right frequency,
Yeah.
they are driving down the message really well. Because I think you have better attention span than a scroll of on Instagram or whoever uses Facebook.
Yeah, we've studied some behavior, right? We've run some close group tests. The YouTube Premium subscribers, of course, they don't see that at all. It's out of question, right? And the YouTube ad people, they also, it's not like, they love seeing those ads. They don't have an option, right? When we ran that survey, some interesting stats came to us. The people who get ads frequently, right? They don't necessarily spend as much time on YouTube. It's very need-based behavior. So they want something, they go watch those couple of ads.
Yeah.
So the frequency idea that we're talking about, it only happens when the same user is spending a lot of time on the platform throughout the day, or within within a week.
Right.
And that's not really happening, and you're being extremely intrusive amongst their behavior. So they're using your platform only for a different reason. It's very need-based. The frequency, I don't think, unless they are rethinking this entire model, it's still the second largest search engine. They might still approach YouTube just like how they approached Google search.
Right.
But I don't think creative-led, just like what Meta has been able to do for a very long time, will never be Google's game.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think for premium kind of audiences, maybe partnering directly with the creator, I think that kind of help. But even that is very difficult to identify. because who are the customers who are going to consume premium content, and that too, who are those audiences for, I mean, who are those influencers whose videos they are watching. So finding that intersection is really difficult. If someone can crack that, then
There is
I
a
think that will
project
be
that
great.
they're working on very similar. Google is actually working on it, which is they understand the. It's not like they don't understand how the ad performance is for the brands, right? And creator is becoming a big deal. And a lot of brands are working with the creators directly to insert their brand, get a mention of their brand and stuff like that. Now Google is trying to monetize this with the platform. I will give you the platform. You work with the creator. Let the creator work with you. I'm giving them the visibility, and then I will take a cut out of it, right? So, not necessarily advertising, which is where I think the future is, Sanand. I'll give you an example. The LinkedIn ads performance have been extremely. It's becoming pathetic as the day goes. It is where you get the extreme high quality of inventory, right? But the problem with most of them being tech savvy, they are starting to turn a blind eye towards anything that looks like an ad.
Yeah.
Okay, but there is a few things that is working on LinkedIn, which is person-based communication, very similar to what we are observing in the other channels, right? You take a UGC, which is led by a creator, and then you run an ad on top of it. The performance is better. LinkedIn, a human-created content that promoted to people, that is seeing much better performance than what is typically called as an ad. So if you observe the pattern between everything that we're talking about, what is that we're calling as an ad may not exist. I mean, it may exist in some form, but it may not necessarily work for the business the way it is working, way it worked yesterday, way it is working today, and in the future.
Right.
It is going to be blended.
Right. I have a question on the follow up on that. You spoke of LinkedIn, and that's true. Like, I don't know if this fits in. I don't know if this is the right question or the right answer, but is anyone considering dropping the CPM rates on these platforms? Because it doesn't make sense, because marketers across the world acknowledge that it doesn't work,
Yeah.
or it's not giving results, but it's still expensive. So then it shuts the door further for anybody to come in. So no one is ready to experiment. Like, if you tell clients that this is the platform, this is going to be your CAC, or this is going to be your CPM, and this is what you're going to expect, immediately they're like, no, put all that money into Meta. That's what happens. So is nobody thinking about, okay, let's maybe reduce the pricing?
See,
Like,
that's the thing. It's not their main source
Yeah.
of revenue. And LinkedIn, when it comes to the ad product, they're way behind.
Yeah.
At least 6-7 years behind in tech world. That is, you can
Massive.
just imagine, right?
Yeah.
Way behind. I mean, we've given that feedback multiple times. Every time there's a new leadership change comes in LinkedIn, that meeting happens and you talk about all of the things. How was Google working? How was Meta working? And LinkedIn, with all the capability, all the highest quality of the data, their ad optimization engine is absolutely bad. Now, the way Meta ads work, it optimizes on its own. It is very likely to show up in front of a person who is likely to perform an action.
Yeah.
LinkedIn doesn't work that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Even though it gives you a lot of campaign objective
Yeah.
at the beginning,
For all the copying that tech products do,
Yeah,
someone should just copy the Facebook, the Meta
exactly.
product. It just works.
So answer your question, I don't think they will reduce their CPMs.
Yeah.
See, it's not about the interface. It is about the algorithms. It is
Yeah.
the maths that goes behind showing ad to a certain
I think going back to
audience.
what you said, I think it's not in LinkedIn's DNA to get their ad product right.
Yeah,
Right? They're doing good job in a lot of other things. Not a great job.
But I think even the organic side of the platform can be better.
Yeah.
Like, I think there's too much cringe in there. Like, and then you have to play that game for you to get ahead,
Exactly.
because now algorithm recognizes that as the standard.
Yeah.
Yeah, videos.
They're trying to push the video again now.
Yeah. I tried a few on the video, like
Okay.
some of the clips from the podcast and stuff. I think the way it just appears, I just don't think it is conducive for
I know.
quick consumption.
I know.
There's something wrong there.
Something wrong.
Like, I feel like I have to take that down after posting and looking at it myself.
Yeah. I mean, even they're prioritizing the video, right? I don't feel like watching any of these videos.
Yeah.
So you'll have to get me to click through and spend time and make me feel good about watching it, right? So it's just.
And what I feel is, it seems all are Gyanis giving Gyan. I mean, won't be able to implement.
There's no one listening. That's why it's not working.
Filtering the noise is a key skill within LinkedIn.
Yeah. We've touched upon these platforms. Another thing that's really growing, and I think, like, as I don't know how many agencies are listening to it, but Any agency operating in performance today at scale can vet to this, which is, I feel marketplaces are becoming very important.
Yes.
And marketplaces also now have subcategories with it, which is now you have quick commerce. And I think everyone's now trying to enter into quick commerce in tier
Yes.
one at least. And if you look at it, I think I can't remember or recall how many brands are in the quick commerce space right now. It's that crowded. But we are seeing some traits and behavior. Again, I think this is early days of what maybe e-com was, or what I believe food delivery was, right? But consumer habits are shifting where we want something, we want the need satisfied very
Real
instantly.
quick. Yeah.
Right? Like recently, I remember this is for a podcast actually. I realized that I don't have the right T-shirt, and I literally went on Blinkit
Yes.
and I
That's
ordered
how
a
I'm doing
T-shirt.
it. Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And I recorded a podcast after that.
I've did that a few times. I bought a sunglass because I forgot it and I had to go somewhere. I bought a
Yeah, yeah.
sunglass.
I bought a small table fan
Wow.
because the AC wasn't on that day, it wasn't working. And I
Yeah.
quickly just did that. So I think there's a lot of that happening. So where does marketplaces fit into all of this? Because some of them have potential for creative communication. Some of them don't. Some of them have very evolved systems. Like Amazon has been around for ages, so that's a robust platform. A lot of the other new age quick commerce are still building their backend. So I think that will evolve. What do you see in that space?
So it's a different ballgame altogether, right? Firstly, it's major disruption. It has never happened anywhere else in the world. I think it's happening in India
Yeah.
for the first time. Something to be proud of. But the behavior of people who is already inside your ecosystem is very different from somebody who you have to convince to get into the ecosystem, right? Here, what happens? People are convinced. People know what they can get. Then it's only the matter of about you educating what is there, and getting them to frequently use your product, and getting them to use you or not your competitor, right? I mean, it's still a lot of marketing, but it is not necessarily performance. If you ask me, the role what performance marketing would probably play here is to first acquire that user, get them into the ecosystem, ensure that they're trying to place their first order, right? Then comes your own what we call as habit triggers that most of the brands use, which is in form of push notification, good coupon codes on your next purchase, right? Getting you into that the prime membership so that you don't go order elsewhere again. And a lot of these tactics would come. Performance marketing, again, it'll probably happen in the form of remarketing, which is, okay, you did not shop anything in the last 1 week. You didn't open my app. What can I do? Where can I show up to get you to do that action again? That I think will be very, very limited. But the user who's already in the ecosystem, their behavior is very different. That whatever Amazon has been doing for donkey's years, which is very similar ad listing based on what you're searching for, that is the max that I think we will see within the marketplaces, and nothing extraordinary beyond that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think for marketplaces, as a performance marketer, I'll say, like, if you are a D2C brand, then if you are present in the marketplace, it is a big win rather than showing ad there. Okay. If you have got enough money to spend, go for that. Otherwise, your presence itself will get you sell there, because that is what the behavior of those users are.
Yeah.
Now, coming to the ads, I think what I have encountered, people are running brand ads apart from performance, and then I see a lot of other type of ads. For example, like this gaming apps, or kind of Dream 11 gamesy kind of things comes up. So I mean, so if you are into that category, then yes, it might work for you. Otherwise, going for ads on these platforms might not work, because that will be very expensive, because the number of audience that are using that particular product are in the premium cities, and that particular platform, whether it is Zepto, Blinkit, whatever it is, they will charge you a premium on the top of it. So the cost you will pay will be much higher than what you can get it through Google or Facebook.
Right.
The inventory is also limited.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's not a lot of innovation. It's very same thing, right?
And what you need to do is you need to send your product to multiple locations in a city. So logistics wise, it is very expensive for you.
Right.
Okay, like For Zepto, let's say there are 40 centers in Bangalore. Either your product can be available in 2 centers or 3 centers, or for that you have to send it to all the centers and you have to approve it. That process itself is long. Until and unless you have this very strong brand presence, then it is really difficult.
The onus also falls on the brand, right? Just like, early days of e-coms where brands pushed, you can order the product on Amazon. Now, whoever is keen on, getting their product, through quick commerce, then I think they already started saying that, order on Zepto, order on Blinkit and stuff like that. So it's a combination of multiple things.
Yes.
I think, one is like, look, going back to what I said, you still have to run performance, to bring the people who are already using your competitors. You still have to use performance to remind them to get back into using the product so the habit continues.
I think I saw one little ad on YouTube.
Okay.
And there they were mentioning like we are available on Flipkart.
Yeah.
So it was on Android TV actually. So
Right.
they were just telling like you can go here and purchase it, something like that.
Right. Yeah. And I'm also seeing a lot of D2C brands today. They're happy hitting a 1.5, 2x ROAS, but then they want to be on quick commerce because they feel that's the quickest way for them to get
Yes.
to the consumer and also get feedback to then iterate and figure. But I agree with you. I think there's a lot of cost components that have to be taken care. It's not for everybody.
Yeah.
And I think even the quick commerce platforms are now maturing where I've noticed this at least on say, for example, in Instamart or one of the more the brands that have been in the market for a while, where they only want to take brands on or say products on which are proven categories and proven brands. So sooner or later, I think most of the inventory you see on an Instamart will mirror what was there down your supermarket.
Yeah.
Because it's, I think, proof of concept that works. And now those legacy brands are going back. I mean, they are getting into quick commerce, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because they already are creating demand on all other formats of advertising. So this is just a easy
Absolutely.
channel for them.
I'm not sure if you guys exhibit the same behavior, right? But if a product that I need urgently is available on quick commerce, I don't necessarily ask for discounts. I'm willing to pay
Yeah.
a premium. I'm willing to pay that search fee because I need it right now.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm a very cost-conscious user. I don't necessarily. I look for whatever available discounts so I can get the best price or compare two different websites and get the best price. With quick commerce, are you delivering the fastest? It's okay if you ask me 50 rupees extra. So that's a good behavior I've noticed for myself.
So
I'm not
actually
sure.
there is a brand called Little Joys.
Okay.
I get it for my daughter. I used to order from their own website. Now what I see is on Zepto I get it. So even I have uninstalled the app. Even there was some 50 or 60 rupees in the wallet. Still I don't care, because if I order it from them, it takes 3 days for them to deliver it to my house. Whereas in Zepto I can get it in 20 minutes. So
This fundamentally changes the consumer behavior.
Absolutely.
This whole category.
Yeah.
And similar expectation the customers will have on every other services. So it'll be interesting to watch, how this entire category shaping on.
It's crazy because I used to take pride maybe 3-4 years back when I used to talk to brands and I used to tell them I don't go to supermarkets. I use Dunzo, and Dunzo's not there but now. But there's so much quick commerce as an option, right? Now the supermarkets around my house are closing down one by one because dark stores are popping up.
Yep.
yes.
And now, for fun's sake, when I'm walking back from lunch in Indranagar, there's still 1 or 2 supermarkets here. I just go into it just for as a lap, just to see what's there and thereabout, because I'm also changing my views as a marketer.
Yeah.
But I'm noticing that the shift in consumer in general around me is also changing. And I don't know if that will go back at some point where people feel like they're missing getting out and shopping.
Yeah. My mom's behavior has changed.
Yeah. I think post-COVID...
Somebody who plans for an entire month, she knows now she can get something in 10 minutes. She
Exactly.
doesn't plan anymore.
Yeah, true. There's one thing someone really dropped to me
Yeah.
last week, and it's bothering me since. And they said, all this quick commerce vegetables that you get. And she said, have you noticed you can leave it out for 3 days and nothing happens to it? And I was like, wow, I had never thought of that, because I am...
Good insight.
Yeah, it is a good insight, but the fact is you're only purchasing for that particular usage. So not like back in the day where you would go and purchase and store it. We're not doing that. So we don't sort of live out to see what happens, right? Because consumption is immediate. But that is something that really triggered me, and I'm like, oh, is there a health hazard? There could be, who knows? But yeah, that's a whole other.
Yep.
But onion and potato, I think it
Yeah.
goes for long.
Yeah.
I have checked it. Tomato, I think
Yeah.
not 3 days. I can. So
Little
there
more.
are certain ways actually.
Yeah.
My wife has identified new ways to store it for
People are
long.
going to comment on the video. Did you guys come here to talk about potato and onions?
Oh, like I said, there might be some people who are in it for that. They will like, please give a recipe. But anyway, in all of this changing ecosystem, I have a question, which is what happens to the world of attribution? Because this has been always a challenge in general. Now you have so many touch points and so many things that you can do. And like you said, even the line between brand marketing and performance is getting a little blurred right now, right? Especially with creative everything. So what happens there, especially now considering Google is actively trying to remove cookies, for example, that's being one of the developments. And I think in Meta, this already happened with Apple's change that happened so many years ago. Now that's sort of created a new ecosystem, as you can see. But what does it hold for the internet as a whole?
So, if you could say, before iOS, that
14.
scenario, 2021, we could build an entire product like multi-touch attribution thing. But after that, what has happened? We are not able to build links between customer widgets. Okay, that is happening because of other browsers getting away. Okay, other browsers in the sense Safari and your Firefox, Opera and all. Okay, they don't keep you. They don't give you the visitor ID, which will kind of connect with your older information. Older information in the sense, let's say I come from Chrome, then I come through Opera, and on my platform I'll be able to link these two, and that will give me a way for multi-touch attribution. Now, since the browsers are not kind of abiding to it, so eventually that connection got broke. Then when Apple introduced it, that Apple system got independent from this measurement system. So eventually what will happen, last touch will remain. Okay, and in that also, if you see that Facebook's attribution, like 7-day click, 1-day impression, then there is one more like 28 days click and 7 days. The moment you change the attribution numbers, you will see more number of conversions for your product. That's the max that you can see at a browser level or at a platform level. Now in Google Analytics, you will be able to see it. They kind of run data driven attribution, but that won't give you the correct picture. Okay, and the other problem is they have never opened it for the public, that how they have designed the logic. If you don't know on what basis they have designed it, it will be very difficult to interpret. They may be biased also. Okay, so in a nutshell, yes, last touch is there and it will remain, but multi-touch attribution is something which have gone, and eventually it will go away once Chrome will go for removal of third-party cookies. So in a nutshell, that is what my answer
So
is.
marketing mix modeling will come back in all its glory. Attribution as a topic itself will cease to exist because, like you mentioned, after iOS, 50% of the results that you're getting those results, but you do not know where you're getting it from. You're not able to tie it back to other initiatives because there is no predictability, with that dark patterns. So the topic of attribution, if you're a brand, you're still thinking about, what is that one specific creative, I need to know that level of attribution, you're wasting your time. It cannot be fixed, right? So instead of that, you start putting money based on the merit of the channel, and you start looking at channel level metrics instead of getting into that creative ad group and campaign level metric. For example, you put X money on Facebook. What is that is Facebook telling you? And what is that your BI dashboard is telling you based on what it could track about what Facebook delivered, right? Then you calculate marketing efficiency ratio, which brings together spends of all the channels, And you're saying, as a marketing unit, are you making sense in terms of unit economics? That has to be the topic rather than attribution as a topic, because you cannot fix it. It's out. There's no point fighting that battle.
Right.
Yeah.
But just thinking about this also, who are the what happens to the next wave, or what is the evolution of a marketer now, for that matter, right? What are the skills now you need to prioritize to survive in this kind of a world? Because we already touched upon the fact that they're not getting as much hands dirty, even though you don't need to, but that builds a certain type of pedigree in you which you don't have the opportunity for. So you're moving away from it, but that's the nature of the world in generally how it's going. Like, someone recently said we are living in a T20 world, like, so,
And quick commerce.
exactly right. So overall, I think society has moved in that direction.
Yeah.
But having said that, what do you think now are is the priority for people, marketers coming into this field, to understand, pick up, or where does the base start from today or for tomorrow?
For me, back in the day, yesterday, today, tomorrow is always going to be, the first skill is going to be storytelling. That's the primary job of a marketer. Marketers were created
For that.
for that, right? And it will continue to exist. I mean, of course, you have the best of the generative AI applications at your disposal. It can create multiple stories based on the inputs that you give, but it has to be you who has to take that final call. How do I tell the story, and how do I tell the story in a variety of different ways, and how do I prompt that engine to get me those better versions of the story that I can say. This, as a skill, I don't think it's going to be redundant if you're a good storyteller. Plus, like I had mentioned, advertising, setting up those campaigns, optimizing those campaigns, anything that you have repeatedly done regularly, that's not a skill anymore. Right? And if you have repeatedly done something every day, you woke up in the morning, went to a dashboard, switched on a few things, switched off a few things, you went and checked a report, and then you added it to a spreadsheet, and then you sent it to your manager. If you have done something consistently, regularly, that can now be done by machine. Right? So that's question is out. Business context, marketers, there is a saying, at least in the B2B world, the marketers never get a seat in the boardroom. It's because we have never spoken business. We have always gotten away with vanity metric, showing awards, award-winning campaigns and stuff like that. We have somehow gotten away. Most of the companies today, marketers do not get a seat at the board table. I'm talking about from the brand perspective, right? It's because the marketers never spoke business, never spoke revenue and stuff like that. So as a marketer, if you become revenue accountable, which is a lot of skills, not necessarily only generating a lead or driving traffic to your website, that is going to be a real important skill, which is knowing business in deep, knowing revenue in deep, knowing how your business is growing, how your business is making money, and then you are taking the right call. Where do I put my money? That becomes an important skill. I don't think anytime soon AI is going to do that for you in terms of business context.
Right. For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. So I would like to add here, like, number one, business is a must in today's state. But when you said, like, in terms of career, there are two parts to it. One is a marketer can start with, like, basics. Then on the creative side of things, like creative copy, ads, and mapping it with the revenue numbers. That is one area where one person can build himself as a marketer. There is the other side to it, the tech side of marketing, where you will mostly deal with the measurement of it, then server side tagging, so mostly analytics side of it, and then your audiences, like first party audiences, how you are kind of building these audiences, how you are segmenting it, and how you are giving signals to your performance marketing channels so that they are going to give you customers who are valuable to you. So I will say these are the two areas where one should start building their expertise, and that will going to help them build their marketing career
Right.
in the next 5 years. That is what I can feel.
Right. More relevance on the T shape of a marketer in today's day and age, or
The T is changing because some of what we used to call in the T, for example, I have not known a lot of marketers who are extraordinary copywriters, right? We've always been
yeah.
okayish copywriters. There are copywriters who are copywriters
Exactly.
exceptionally well.
True.
That now a tool can do it, right? So many of those things in what we used to call as an earlier T, I think there'll be a new T now.
Right.
there is a new term that is emerging called vibe marketing, right? In which I think the focus will be more on how much can you do as a person. How do the unit of productivity that you use to get from every human, your expectation as a founder of an agency, your expectation on them is going to change.
Yeah.
Can you do the work of 10 people? Or if you're going to hire somebody, you'll first ask that question, why can't an AI tool do this, and why do you need a human to do
Yeah.
it? The conversations are going to head into that directions rather than a T, because we do not know how many of those T's, just like basic copywriting, I'm not saying expert copywriting, is going to get replaced by Gen AI.
Right.
Yeah.
True. Like we were discussing about it before we started off as well, right? Like we have significantly optimized on the writing piece, on the mundane writing that used to happen.
Yes.
Where I'm seeing lack of, which has always been a challenge in the industry to hire, is creative writers who can write with a certain creative craft, which has always been a challenge to find. But that's mainly for longer. A form of storytelling, I would say, not
Yeah.
for performance at least. For performance, I'm sort of seeing that even AI is able to understand,
Yes.
what is
It can do a
required.
good job.
Yes.
Yeah, at least because there are set formats for each platform,
Yeah.
and there's a certain headline, and there's a limitation in the characters. So while that is I think that AI understands better than a human.
That's true.
Yeah.
Who's introduced to this world as a
true.
newbie. So that's for sure. Where I'm seeing that change, at least where I think there's a gap, is that. Like you said, business is fundamentally, even I feel it now more than ever, that most agencies will become like consulting agencies, pure play agency format, which wherein you did execution job for your clients, I think is going to cease to exist,
Yeah.
because the client will just get the execution done in house,
Yeah.
right, through optimization. Where I think that the decision on what is the right strategy, right creative, right call for distribution or media is where I think human impetus is going to be there more and more. But like you said, I think we all can agree that a lot of this will start going in house and get optimized through AI. And I have this saying, I keep saying that in our line of work, a lot more people need to go back to farming, like, because there's been over delivery or oversupply of talent in marketing over the last
Yeah.
10 years, because it was
Yes.
cooler. There's a lot of there was a generational shift in marketers in general. There was a certain set who understood old school mainline principles, new ones who understood certain platforms. I think in between there was also, even today I'm actually seeing that a lot of brands are outsourcing YouTube mandate, because even a regular agency can't solve for it. So you need a specialist agency to come and do just YouTube
Yeah.
for you, right?
Yeah.
Or back in the day, how you had someone who you would hire to just write blogs for you. So I think that is still there, but I feel after a while we'll learn it and then we'll process it and then they'll come back into AI, no doubt. I want to ask you, because both of you are uniquely placed to answer this, which is, you spend significant time in agencies, heading teams, large teams, solving for multiple brands, and then now are doing it in house. For a future world, having experienced both sides, if you had to pick out of if you were in a position as a CMO or as a founder, where would you, what would you choose to do? Would you want a partner, or would you try to build all of the skills in house?
Tough question, but I think I would. It's a bit of both. I would go for hybrid. I would want most of the extremely important things that matter to the business to be in house, right?
What would the examples be for those?
Let's say, for that matter, you're dependent on Meta. 80% of your revenue comes from Meta. I would want that to be in house, because a day you screw up, your business is screwed up, right? Website, which can be critical lifeline for a lot of business, that I would want that to be controlled in house, right? Very specific expertise, that is not necessarily scalable, or your in-house talent may get that roadblock of not being able to move ahead, right? I can talk one example internally that I'm facing is video specifically, right? We've been wanting to create presenter-led videos in a certain editing format that is more of trending in nature. My current editor is not able to go beyond a certain roadblock that he has, right? In this case, we have brought in an agency that is specifically doing modern way of editing videos for Instagram and not the exterior editing school, right? Similarly, in our world, there is something called ABM. We have tried solving ABM multiple times within the company, but ABM is not necessarily marketing job. It cuts across a few different functions. In this case, like just you mentioned, we are looking for we are board a consultant type of a company. It's not an agency, more of a business consultant who specializes in ABM, who can actually offer the expertise to 3 different teams and make this program work. So if I'm that CMO, I would probably continue to work with these kind of very specific agencies who come and solve a very specific thing for me. I don't think I'd ever work with a mainline agency who would come with, I can do 10 things for you. Yeah.
Yeah. Because-
It's the same. So, but I'll add some more things to it, mostly in terms of measurement related things. I won't be giving it to third party because most of the data stays with me. Okay. So, building it with an in house team will be really helpful. The second part is if I'm very new, I mean, let's say I am starting a very new brand. In that case, I will go to an agency because I don't have the expertise to make everything. Once I get mature, over 2 years or 3 years, what I'll think is I will keep certain important things with me as an in-house team, and rest of the things I'm going to pass it to the agency or some expert consultant, not to any freelancers.
Yeah. Even that's a call because of the freelancer call is because of the size of the organization you're at, right?
Yes.
If you were at a bootstrap startup, probably more freelancer options would come through.
Yes.
Freelance,
So the problem with freelancing is what I feel is they're not accountable to many things.
Yeah.
They will be just focused on this is the job description, I'm going to do it. Done. That will not work in today's world.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's why we look for freelancers from our own network because of this very fact accountability. You go missing for a week and then what happens? Right? You will say that you're not well. I mean, it's okay. A human will fall sick. If you're working with an agency, at least you'll have a backup, who can do the job for you.
Right. Exactly. So when you look to hire in your teams today, what is that? And it's a subjective answer, but what's the number one skill you're looking for? First skill. I'm not saying the best skill,
Okay.
but the first checkpoint for you. If this is fine, then you start assessing on everything else.
It's more of a, are you looking for a marketing skill or generally?
Generally, could be anything.
I look for hunger. That's number one. If you're not showcasing that hunger and passion, then comes skill and everything. That's number one for me.
Number two I look is how frequently the person has changed the company.
Interesting.
Please expand.
Considering the history of Mr. Ashwin Palo,
please expand on that.
Yeah.
I have also certain strong thoughts on that, but
Yeah. So, see, experience is not about doing the same thing multiple times, doing different things for a longer period of time. So that way, what will happen is you will get exposed to multiple challenges. So if one person is changing, in every 6 months, one companies, then even if I hire that person, there is no guarantee that the person will stay with me. So I will look for at least the average number of year will be at least 18 months or 24 months. That will be a good number because the first 3 months or first 6 months will go in terms of understanding the business processes and getting that rhythm. At least it takes 3 months. Okay. If it is a fresher, then obviously in 30 days or 60 days they can catch it up. But I mean, to say
Yeah.
this is what I'm going
that's
to
a red
look
flag for sure for me. I mean, if I ask me for red flags of a skill,
Yeah.
then I would
Yeah.
say that in a year and 6 months, you hardly could have moved the
Yeah.
needle for a business.
absolutely. No, I agree. I'm actually of the same opinion.
Yeah.
I used to look for people. See, in agencies, typically people do move on every 2 years,
Yeah.
except the core team that ends up staying. Unless you're hiring people who are slightly older,
Yeah.
after 30, then you typically are going to stay on and are going to look for some stability because of the way you are in your life. But yes, this is a huge problem because you don't have depth of learning, you don't have
That's
depth
true.
of challenge. And I think this is one thing I've also learned, that even as a founder or running a business or heading a team, you also have to reinvent yourself. And then you don't realize it because you're so caught up in operations. But that's a reality even at the top, right? So at the bottom as well, or even in the mid levels, wherever you are at, as a handling any function, I think depth of challenge is a huge important thing. And I think today's generation thinks a little differently. We have seen trends, in
Yeah.
early 20s, they want to jump less than a year.
Yeah.
25 to 30, they stay on a little over a year, unless they really like the place and they find a sweet spot. But even then, I feel there's a lot of the grass is greener on the other side.
That's true. That's
phenomena
true.
that
We're
does
seeing
happen.
that pattern as well.
Yeah.
I think because a lot of them are young, they probably don't give a lot of importance to something called longevity, right? And at the moment, when you're going to be a leader, you're going to be running a team, is when you realize some of these challenges
Yeah.
and yourself.
And I don't know if I should say it, but I do see that
Yeah.
for people who have been in certain fields, who are like, because today the world is changing, right? Where everything is sort of, like you said, is amalgamating, and you have to then also look for specialist skill sets to solve for specialist things. At some levels, I feel even CMOs struggle because it's an unfamiliar world, because they haven't put in those yards probably 10, 15 years ago, and they had a lot of shifts. But anyway, I think this is the state of
It's yeah.
it's a T20 world we're living in, so you can't help it, right? Right. I have a follow-up question to hiring, which is on how, when it comes to building, grooming, mentoring a team, very important. Um, what has been your personal philosophy, and what do you think works best in our field in marketing, and particularly in digital and performance? Is there anything that you can share as secrets that has worked for you guys?
Cool. I actually spend a lot of time with anybody who's joining new. My intention is not to get them to perform immediately. My intention has always been to get them feel comfortable. That has always worked for me. My retention rates throughout my career have been through the roof, right? Very hardly people have quit on me saying that you've been a bad manager. It's the intention is to make them feel good that they made the right choice, because the first 3 months, just like a client, the new hire is also the same thing. They'll always think, have I made the right decision? We have come out of another very comfortable home to somewhere unfamiliar, right? So that has worked for me. Once they feel comfortable, I usually tell them your first month is your honeymoon period. You can do whatever you want, but just get comfortable, knowing each other, talking to people and stuff like that. I usually schedule one-on-ones with them regularly when they're new, irrespective of the levels that they join in. Even if they're like 3 levels below me, 2 levels below me, I make it a point to continue talking to them, take them out for lunch and stuff like that. Once I know that they're in the system, they're feeling the rhythm, then everything starts. Second month onwards, right? Um, Apart from that, I think things that have worked for me is getting the team to constantly upskill, which is, I think, which is something that has worked for me throughout my career. And it's something that most people appreciate, right? Many times, people will think it is being pushed down their throat, but the moment they see a result out of that effort that they put in, they will know that, okay, it was worth putting my time on it. So that constant upskilling, we have figured out different ways to do it within the system. We make it a point to do that, either in a Friday evening, or in the Monday stand-ups that we do with the team, or a quarterly program, or when we do a combination of team outing, plus learning something new together. That happens. These are two things that has largely worked for me.
Yeah, for me, I basically spend time with them in the first 2 to 3 months. I mostly focus on how the business works. So mostly I explain them how things work instead of telling them to do the things. Then eventually, if they are fine with the business model, if they are okay with the business, eventually they will stay. If they don't like it, then eventually they are going to leave. So that itself is a very good time for me and for the person to understand whether they are a good fit for the system or not. And if they don't find it good, I try to make them uh, comfortable with the system. Even if they don't, then I tell them to leave it.
Straightforward.
Yeah.
No, I think it works in,
Yeah.
like, I think,
Otherwise, they will be a burden for you. Okay. And even they will feel like my manager is, not a great manager. Why should I spend my time? I think that is a very good decision.
Yeah.
Instead of firing them after 9 months or after a year, in the initial time period itself, you both know that this is going to work or not. I think that is a good decision.
I'm assuming a lot of this is inspired or influenced a lot by the time you spent in agencies also, right? Because it's a human capital business.
Yeah.
And you have to get it right, or else it has a lot of sequential problems it creates. So I'm assuming that's helped a lot.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. Everything that I've known in terms of being with people, it's all agency that taught us.
Right.
Because retaining talent in agency is difficult.
Yeah.
High pressure environment, no work-life balance most of the time. And I'm not generalizing it, but most of the time, no work-life balance. So it taught a lot
Right.
about people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, you touched upon it. This is one change I've seen in the last 8 years here. Since COVID, I think progressively each year we are having more time to do work. Maybe we are maturing as an organization and a lot of systems are getting built. But I also think as marketers today, and this has been my fundamental philosophy that to be good at marketing, you need to you need to spend significant time outside of your job as a consumer, or else you're not going to be able to understand, put yourself in the shoes, etc. And I think smart marketers figure that out very quickly, and now I'm finding a lot of that as a culture. And I think it's happening throughout the industry where people are becoming very conscious of
Yeah.
how much time they spend as a marketer versus they take that off and go out and spend that time as a consumer as well. So I think while I think we learned and optimized for it, I think the world's
Yeah.
also made it easier for us
That's
to
true.
balance the two sides of the world.
That's true.
I have a question. This is something coming from me. Being on agency side now on in-house brand teams, is it easier now to set expectations with stakeholders, or is it still as much a battle as it was when you were with agencies?
Are you talking about stakeholders or agency
No, no,
stakeholders? Or?
your upper management and whoever else it would be, because I think now the back when you were in agencies, I'm assuming you had to get marketing results, and they were linked with marketing teams. Now it's probably driving marketing results, which influence business impact, right, or business decisions. So is it still same dynamics? Is it different? I'm like, this is just from me. I'm curious to know
It
how
was
this
a
is.
big learning curve for me, at least in the first year. I was behaving very much like an agency marketer, initiative to initiative, jumping quickly, shutting down things, very extremely tactical, right? But then as I started working with really smart people, who comes from different ways of life, highly superior education backgrounds in our companies, Meta, and people who have worked in the biggest of the companies, right? After that, it changed a lot of my perspective, right? The way I work with vendors, agencies, and setting up the right expectations internally, there's a big change in the way that I operate. Considering that I need to work with an international team, it's much different from my life as an Indian marketer inside an agency. That's a completely different ball game for me, at
Yeah,
least.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true. So what I felt is like, I mean, till Google, my thought process was always, impressions, clicks, conversions. My whole world was around that. But here, what I feel is like when I started interacting with different stakeholders, one is product, then analytics, then that finance teams, risk teams, you get to know different angles why they want to talk a certain business content. Okay, so that is something that shaped my thought process, and in terms of storytelling, that is something that improved a lot. Like earlier I was very bad at it. Now I think I can do the same thing in a much lesser time, and I can understand what they are looking for versus what I was expecting them to hear.
Right.
The agency trauma never left me.
Yeah.
It continues to be there. What I mean by that is, I was, of course, the people manager and client, servicing person, all of that, right?
I know
It's
that.
a lot of it's a lot of
Yeah,
Every
yeah.
time I
responsibility.
used to open my Slack, there used to be a fire. Weekend, wake up in the morning. You open Slack means, there is going to be fire. Somebody might have screwed up something. Some client is unhappy. I still have that trauma. Nothing would have happened for me. Nobody pings me in the weekend. Even if there is a problem, people will tell you in a polite way, nice way. That agency trauma has not left me at all. It's been like good three and a half years.
Oh God. So, so because of me, something happened. Okay, I don't want to name the brand for affiliate marketing.
Yeah, of course,
Oh
of
God.
course.
I mean,
Insurance brand.
yeah, yeah.
It,
So
it is not there
we
anymore, I
worked
think.
with we worked with an insurance brand, and there were a few affiliates. One of the affiliates, what he did is he was telling like, you sign up for this form, we're going to give you Paytm 30 rupees. People used to fill the form like anything. Okay, brand got leads like in one day they got some 3,000 leads. Okay, that manager got, he was astonished like, how can this agency do this amazing work? Then the call center called these people and all are like junk. हमको तो नहीं पता है आप कहाँ से बोल रहे हैं. Okay. Then he
Yeah.
called and like bashed like anything. I gave my phone. When he started calling me, I gave Deepan take the call.
Right. Yeah. I was a trauma manager for people at the clients.
But I've heard that about Deepan, by the way. I have a lot of people who worked here, otherwise who I know. Everyone said that about Deepan. So I think you have invited this
To myself?
Yeah. I
On
think
myself.
being this person who wants to solve everyone's trauma. I think it's all now. It takes some while. I think few more years. I think it'll leave you.
Baby,
Yeah.
I really hope so.
Yeah. I have a question to ask you, and I think this is something that I see a lot of new brands or early stage product based companies really struggle with, which is the correlation between what the tech and the product needs to do and what the performance team requires to sort of ensure that, again, it's a problem of attribution, by the way, on how to ensure that the tracking and analytics are in place. I have worked with countless brands in my time here, and I've noticed I don't think there's any brand I can say that 100% everything was on point.
That's true.
Right, where we could.
Yeah.
And this is something that's not often spoken about. I think it's come to an understanding, expectation that this is how it is, and now we'll find a way around it. Right? I have seen some companies, for example, I've sort of heard where there are 97-98% accuracy, and that's like a industry like incredible, right, to achieve that. But even at 70-75, a lot of brands are okay with it. I have been at taken over some accounts as an agency where it's all over the place. Like first day you set up a campaign, in 1 hour it shows 289 conversions
Yeah.
at a CAC of like 2 rupees when
Yeah.
the product's average price is like 8K, for example.
Page view.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's triggering all the wrong ones, right? And I've noticed that a lot of the legacy businesses don't even understand what this
That's
is.
true.
So you yourself have to get in, fix it, etc. I'm assuming at product and evolved organizations is very different. If attribution is going to go, then this problem will probably find newer, or there'll be a different way to solve for it, right? In the sense that you will have your own custom.
Yeah. See, measurement and attribution are two different things, if you ask me. Right? In fact, if I completely understand where you're coming from, 99% of everything that we have audited in our life never had the right measurement in place, because it is such a role that is given to either an agency or an in-house person or to a web developer. The marketer never took responsibility of measurement, truly, like complete ownership of measurement, because it switched multiple hands. Everybody did it their own way, and nobody seems to have control over what has happened in the history. There is not enough log maintained. There is no track record of what changed when did you implement a certain pixel and stuff like that. If you ask me, day one, brands have to get measurement right. Even if that have to, if that means you hire a real specialist to help do it for you and get them to audit that work every quarter, you should do that. It'll be well worth the effort. Let's assume that you're spending about 10 lakhs, right? If you have the right measurement in place and you're spending about 1 lakh, 2 lakhs for them, it is totally worth it. You will be able to recover that in the form of good ROI on your marketing campaigns. Attribution is a different story. First is to collect data, store it in some fashion, in a way it makes sense for you, and that shouldn't change, so that you can historically look at what happened for your brand. If you had consistently changed measurement, you can't look back at what did you do, what changed 2 years back, what has changed now. You will be looking at absolutely wrong numbers and take all the wrong decisions.
Right. My question is also more about why is there a culture where, or acceptance for that matter, that it's okay if it's not 100% or 90% or whatever, right? Because is it more of the going through the pain of change through the entire stakeholders, organizations to get it done, or convincing a client, for example, to get it done? Because I sometimes don't have an answer, because I think historically have never touched anything to do with tech and said we will always tell you what needs to be done, but implementation is on the product side or the client side. But
because there was no true owner. That's exactly the reason, right? If the marketer has taken ownership of tracking and measurement, this wouldn't have happened. You're always dependent on somebody, a developer who has his own set of things to do. The reason they say that it's okay if it is 70% and go, because the developer would have said it'll take 15 days to do it.
Yeah.
And then you don't have any other option. You still need to hit your numbers. The marketer still went ahead and did it. half-assed job, and then you didn't really get what you wanted. Sometimes you hit the number and you said it was fine. Okay, even with 70%, I was able to hit my number. So why don't I just continue to operate with that mindset? I mean, I don't want to talk about my country in this way. It's a very Indian way of doing things. When I work with people in the other country, most of them, they first get their measurement right,
Yes.
first get the reporting right, and then turn on your campaigns,
Right.
then put money
Right.
into it.
That was going to be my question, because
Yeah.
if it's a problem only to certain markets or otherwise, because
It is.
also, whose responsibility would it be in an ideal scenario? Is it the marketer's responsibility? Is it the tech's responsibility?
It should be a marketer's responsibility.
Yeah. So to get the job done, the way I have solved it, I've gotten somebody to report to marketing. Typically, what happens in most organizations, the tech folks will report to the engineering heads, and they will do their own stuff, and they don't necessarily talk the marketing language. They will not maintain your logs. They will have their own processes. The moment you have that accountability point to marketing, cross-reporting it, because many of the developers won't like reporting to marketing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You report to your own engineering head, and you report to me as well on dotted lines. I have a say in your appraisal. I have a say on the way how you're performing. Then it'll fall in place.
Right.
All you need to do is maintain documentation. If you do that, problems are solved. It's just that many people don't do it.
Right. And from a marketer's point of view, is it okay to expect the tech team to understand what that is that you want and expect proactiveness from them, or is it more onus on you? Exactly, right?
Yeah,
Because
it's on you.
yeah, because with everything that's happening, this piece is not changing.
See, the number is on you, so it's on you. You just need a dev so that if you are not good at dev,
Yeah.
you need a dev helps to do it. That's it.
You,
And it's
you
worth
just
that
have
investment.
to make the dev understand what your main objectives are, how it can be achieved, and you test it whether after implementation is it working or not. If it is not working, then just try it out repetitively, get these things fixed. That
Yeah.
should be the objective.
It's totally worth it. In many companies, that doesn't happen. For me, I've been fortunate to get a full-fledged engineering team to work on my website all the time, and anything that I need gets done in 5 minutes. The power that you gives you, it's unparalleled. You have an engineering team that truly understand what you want and gets the job done in 5-10 minutes. It's unparalleled. That's probably the reason I've never wanted to. I mean, that changed my perspective about having good in-house teams. Against if I had an agency to do that work for me, I wouldn't have gotten to where I am today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or if you had a great agency team to do that, you would have said outsourcing is the way.
Yes.
You would have
Other way
changed
around. Other way around, for
yeah,
sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I did this thing internally of telling people that you guys would be coming today. Unfortunately, they're not able to see you because it's you decided to choose. You decided to spend your Saturday evenings with me, right? But having said that, my team did send a few questions through, and they wanted to get your opinion. I'm going to ask you guys this.
Sure.
So my performance team wanted to understand, or one member from the team wanted to understand, with this phenomena that we spoke of, the fact that creative today is so important. Is there a framework for testing creative communication? Could be any format, right? And have you guys at your end figured out any format of scalable or impartable knowledge in this domain?
No one way to do it. In fact, my own approach to creative testing has evolved. But the method that works for us is to work on one theme a quarter, right? So you have one theme a quarter that you strongly believe in. Then you take a call on different angles that you can build under that theme, and each of it it can have n number of creatives, right? So depending upon your bandwidth that you have within the team, you can either do 3 or 4 versions of the creative, or you can go all the way up to 25 as well, right? So one theme a quarter. You have a good marketing calendar, so you know which days are important, which days are coming in, and stuff like that. 3 to 4 different angles, not more than that, because it can distract you. Because the more the angles, the number of variations of creatives can be really high. Then under each of the angles, depending upon the channels that you're going, either 3 or 4 versions of the creative. That's about it. The reason the theme is important is, let's say if you're coming up with a hero asset that you want to run consistently throughout the quarter, that theme becomes really important. So you come up with that hero asset then flows into different angles and different creatives. So that has been the approach for me, at least. One quarter, every quarter refresh. So far it has worked for me in terms of bettering, because when we look at last quarter results, take a few of the things that has worked for us and then iterate from there. So because of which every quarter, we were able to do better compared to the previous one. In case if it had not really worked, then I would have had to look at my process again. So this has been our creative testing methodology. What I One thing that we do differently is I don't necessarily put money on creative that converts. So there are two metrics that we look at. One is, of course, the creative has to generate revenue, which is conversion, right? Second is engagement. There are different people who look at engagement differently, likes and shares and stuff like that. I look at the quality of comments. So as long as that creative is generating good quality of comments, that engagement creative will continue to get money from us, irrespective of the conversion it generates. That I think has been a good little hack for me, because whenever I wanted, let's say I want to influence, there's a lot of add to carts and stuff like that. I could take up the post ID of that particular ad that had a lot of good comments and push it towards that audiences, and it can generate more conversions for me. This could be your end of the month hack to, let's say, at the end of the month you need to hit a number. You could do that, to boost some of your numbers.
Yeah. So basically, what I did is, like earlier I said, I have got two metrics. One is volume, second one is quality. Quality, we get it from the revenue numbers. So we have a business dashboard where we can see exactly what particular channels are giving us conversions, and in that we have a system where I can see, which particular format, which particular creatives are giving me conversions. So we have a kind of mapping, like for these so mapping in terms of channel and the creative format and the creative communication also. These three things basically help us understand what type of content and what kind of format is giving me results. So I know, like, this is my target number, so and I should hit this number by this quarter. If it is about volume, we know which are the channels that are going to give me volume. We go for that. We just switch on the creatives that are giving us volume. Now I know that I have hit my number. Then what I do is I focus on the quality, which is basically giving me more quality. So we have got certain segments, for example, between 18 to 30, 30 to 45, 46 to 60, 60 plus. And we have the behavioral traits, for example, if it is a certain product, financial product, how they are going to transact with us. And based on that information, we know, like, for example, if it is a card, then in what category the spending is, whether it is entertainment or it is grocery or it is supermarkets or it is online applications. We know that people are spending under this category, so our messaging goes around that category. So for 18 to 30, this is the format, this should be the creative communication. We make a lot of tweaks about that, and that is the strategy that works. And like Deepan, we don't try a lot of creative angles, 4 to 5 angles, that is enough for one set of communication.
Yeah, easily focused.
Right. On that, just last piece, is that purely a choice because you want to stay focused, or and also because it's giving you the results that you desire? If tomorrow the target increases, would you then require more?
So our basic method, it gives me the leverage to scale it to 2x or to scale it to 0.5x. So yes, number one is focus. The second one is, if the goal changes, then how I can fit my creative communication accordingly.
Got it. There's a follow-up question to this, which is, how do you approach audience saturation, and what's your process of refreshing creative targeting without killing momentum? Some of it you covered, but
Yeah, I think my answer is the same. Previous
Okay.
one.
Now,
You go for a quarterly refresh, irrespective of whether it worked for you or not. Of course, there are always a few hero creatives that'll continue to work for you, and you really don't want to touch it, right? There will be a time where the performance of that, would fall down, And my only recommendation would be to first scale by breadth in terms of adding more angles and more variations of the creatives under each angle. Beyond that, I think in the quarterly refresh method has always worked for
Yes.
me. Right, monthly sometimes become too much, because it puts a lot of load on the team. Depending upon the scale of the business, also, when I used to work in agencies, real big scale accounts, then the creative refresh used to be really high because the audience saturation happens very fast. And something like video creative would take its own time, right? In a given month, I can only produce so much.
In saturation also, there are two types of saturation. Okay. One saturation is at a creative level. The second saturation is at a channel level. So that is also very important for you to understand, like at what level your ROMI goes negative. So for that, what you need to do is you should have an idea about, like, 1 lakh per month, this is the return you are getting. 5 lakh a month, you are getting this return. 30 lakhs a month, you are not getting anything. So you should have that number with you, so that by the time you hit that number, you should stop spending on that particular channel, and you should shift to some other channel which is going to give you the incremental revenue. So that will basically help you, so that you can know with the help of marketing mix modeling, that will give you the limit for each of these channels. And if you go beyond that number, eventually you are not going
Yeah.
to scale, you will go downwards.
Right.
So
Plus, also,
for creative, what Deepan said perfectly sits right. For channel, this is something only you will discover with the help of marketing mix modeling.
yeah,
Right.
and there is over dependency of marketers on the native targeting offered by Meta. We don't. I'm. You talk to 100 of them, 19 of them will depend on the Facebook's targeting, right? The moment you depend on it, you're letting that control of targeting to Facebook completely. I mean, of course, people use lookalike and all of that, but Facebook knows that you want more return, and Facebook will try to force your product down the throat of people who are at that almost at the verge of buying a
Yes.
product because they have done a lot of impulse purchases a lot of times, right? So eventually, it'll end up killing your brand when you continue to do it, even though you may have gotten ROI out of that campaign. And I've had experiences firsthand multiple times, doing it to an extent. At the 13th or the 14th frequency, people have bought products, right? But when you look at the comments on that ad, a lot of negative comments on that ad. So, at what cost do you want ROI? It's a big, you can get that, you can force somebody to
Yeah.
get them to buy, but at what cost? At the cost of lowering the equity of the brand that you have built. That's a call that you need to take as a marketer. Yeah.
Right.
At the same time, you also need to think, let's say if you are getting a customer, let's say at 300 rupees versus a customer at 1200 rupees. Let's say the channel is, one is Meta and the second one is, let's say, native. Okay. So you also need to see, like, this particular 300 rupees acquisition is giving you more revenue or not. So if you are getting only 1500 revenue in the next 6 months, and the acquisition that you have got at 1200, let's say the person gave you the revenue of 30,000 rupees, then the higher amount cost is basically giving you a quality customer rather than this 300 rupees cost. So every quarter you should review, like, what quality of customers you are bringing to the system. Otherwise, that is going to collapse at some point of time. So you can meet your volume numbers, and this is one of the drawbacks of marketers.
Yeah.
Like, we see 500 customers, fine, we got it, cool. It's not like that.
Exclusion. There is a
Yeah.
concept of exclusion, which many marketers again don't do it. For example, people who you have overexposed to your advertising to, you can always exclude them from campaigns. Okay, that is one way of doing it. Second is, you can work with a lot of data vendors who are approved by Meta to give you custom audiences, fresh custom audiences. I know a company which is tied up with all the India payment gateways, and they have the backend data, and they can give you hashed data based on their transaction behavior, right? Things like this, you could in the B2B world, we use tools like metadata. There's something called contact out. All of these tools, brings fresh data into the system already. For example, I could go, like Ashwin was saying, there is channel. Uh, what do you call, saturation. That happens all the time. It happens because the channel is going after the same audiences, even though they have this whole big universe of audiences. So sometimes you have to force your channel to show your communication to newer audiences because it is not by default built into their system. Yeah.
Right. Ashwin, by any chance, are you a CSK fan? Because I know Deepan is, and I'll tell you why I'm asking. Because you guys have answered like Dhoni does. I ask one question, and then all three, the next subsequent questions are also answered in that.
So I don't have any preference in IPL because I don't watch IPL most of the
Fair,
time.
that's fine. Because the third question was very similar in the same zone. I think you guys have answered it. But if I will still ask in case there's any different perspective you can offer, which is when a campaign is working well, how do you decide whether to increase the budget on it or to try a new audience instead? But I think
When it's working, you just keep on increasing the budget. Simple answer. In fact, people would tell you that 10% increase every 3 days and stuff like that. No, if you're bold enough, you can 2x in one day and see if it is giving you the 2x results. Or if you are even more bold enough, just wait for 4 or 5 days at the same, right? So we have done that multiple times, and which is 2xing instantly, because as long as there's a, while you're setting up the campaign, generally you get the audience base, that how many people you're reaching, and then your campaign has its own metrics, that okay, out of this universe, how many people that you've reached out to. Just 2x, when the campaign is working, 2x, and you can do that every day, you can do that every second week. You don't necessarily have to follow that really old school scaling methodology of 10-20% every 3 days. Yeah, it's really outdated scaling tactic. Yeah.
got it. Last bit, I'm going to ask you guys
Yeah.
something about your personal views on things. One question I got is, according to you, what's the most overrated metric in performance marketing, or what marketers really like to track?
Overrated metric, I think
ROAS.
ROAS is definitely, at least for e-com marketers, ROAS is an overrated metric.
Impressions.
Impressions, yeah, it's a
Mine would be
vanity.
impressions.
Yeah, impressions, clicks,
Views.
visitors, views, absolutely vanity metric. Click through is, I wouldn't call it vanity because it helps us make a lot of decisions. Uh, all everything else is, in a way, views and clicks and impressions and ROAS, especially ROAS is, it's a really overrated metric. Yeah,
Right.
and there is another thing called share of voice.
Yeah.
It's
What
not really
is
a
that?
metric.
What is it?
It is a scammy metric invented by advertising industry.
Absolutely.
And we have sold it for a very, very long period of time.
Yeah. No, I agree.
And there is one more thing. So, I mean, people show it in their Facebook. I've increased my ROAS from 20 to 20, 500% in
Yeah.
2 weeks. Okay. And they show this spammy dashboards.
Yeah.
I mean, it can be increased just by making small changes in your conversions. All these things
You
can be
mentioned,
done.
right? You set up a campaign and it showed you 256 conversions at 2 rupees CAC. That's possible. I mean, there are tools that can help you make those fake screenshots.
Yeah.
So any company that sells you, I deliver you this ROAS, is very likely a scammy company.
Yeah.
And it's not a person to be trusted.
The last thing I have to ask you is, what's the one thing performance marketing has taught you guys? Okay, wait. I'll change it. Let me iterate that question a little bit. What is the one thing performance marketing as a profession has taught you in general about people?
Not
In
really.
general, about people.
What's your biggest human behavior takeaway?
I think one thing I've learned is, that people can get unpredictable, and that is okay, right? Not everybody is going to be in the exact way that you expect them to be, especially friends, people at work, family, right? Everyone is going to have their good days and bad days. The one thing that performance marketing has taught me, marketing in general has taught me, that is just like channels, people can be unpredictable. It can have its own good days and bad days, and it's absolutely okay. You'll be fine at the end of it all. That you don't have to take it seriously.
I'm still thinking.
Don't go for it.
So, basically, what? Like performance goes up and down in our campaigns. The same thing happens in our life too. So we need to be patient, wait for some time till things go calm, That is what I learned.
Anything you want to like expand on? Just
Okay, expand on in the sense, let's say, uh, in performance, what happens? Like some days are really good, some days are very bad, and some days you go through a lot of pressure situation to explain why this has gone wrong, and you don't know why it has gone wrong. Okay, so you find ways to fix things. The same thing happens in life too. Some days it will be rosy, some days it will be really difficult. So we need to find our ways how we can sail through it.
Cool.
Got it. Fair.
We can put it on the wall
Yeah.
next time. Ashwin's photo.
It's actually a nice idea. I should compile all the quotes from this
Yeah.
podcast series
Yeah.
that I've done and make something. And then you can have this explanation next to it with the headline.
Ashwin Palo.
Right. Closing thoughts. Is there anything you guys want to ask me?
I mean, as an agency founder, what is your view on where performance marketing is heading to?
Lesser and lesser role for agencies, or at least on operational front. But I think there's a lot of opportunity I see. So there's some things that will happen in the future, and there's a lot of reality of today. I feel in marketing in general, from my experience, it's cyclic. Like a trend comes, and then you try to learn that trend by doing it certain way. So sometimes it like I think this has happened even before, where we went through a certain period of in-housing where a lot of things were done. Then it went back to agencies, then came back to in-house. Tomorrow again, I think some of the models will evolve again, and you will need external help. Newer things will be in the market. I think as long as you can think and you can understand business and you can solve business challenges using whatever methods of communication, I feel an agency will always have a role. I think this business model has evolved, but this industry has survived for over 200 years. So I think it'll always have its place in the market. So that is where I see the opportunity. But I think like I said, I think at least from performance, it needs to be more like consulting, less like what ad agencies made performance marketing back in the day or the way it was. So, and that's what you're seeing in the market today. I think a lot of big fours are coming and acquiring performance agencies and trying to make that a big part of their in-house function. So I think that's where I think the world will go. That's what I see will happen.
You had a smirk when I said ROAS. Is it overrated metric? So
I mean,
is
yeah.
that continuing to be the expectation from clients? That we want this extraordinary
yeah, I
ROAS
think-
right from month one.
I think it's simplified as so. One good thing is it's less ROAS and it's more about revenue generated. I think that nomenclature has come, at least in circles that we are in, because I think it's just an evolution where I think that people are still so early stage and non-evolved marketing teams still are obsessed on it, no doubt, because founder has said I need in this much, and then that information has come down, so the team is chasing that, right? So then it's easy to just sort of talk about it. But in evolved organizations where marketers have a certain number of years of wisdom and like have done it, it's a little bit different. They look at it from average revenue generated per user, what cost are you acquiring a user for, and just total business impact. And I think conversations are a lot more evolved there. Both sides are there. I think I'm laughing because we are here, but
So-
in a
so
meeting
let's
I would
say-
yeah, right, exactly. Let's do more of that. Let's double the ROAS.
Yes.
So let's say if someone wants to start an agency today, okay, so what will be your advice be?
Keep it
Performance
as
marketing agency. Performance marketing
Yeah,
agency. Let's
okay.
keep it to specific to the topic. Yeah.
performance marketing agency. I would say build creative function because performance agencies will come to you. So I mean, I know this because there are a lot of performance marketing agencies and performance marketers who are working on a brand mandate call up the creative agency that is assigned to the brand and say, what are you doing for creative this week? So because his performance strategy is now dependent on that,
Yeah.
right? So I think that's happening at least with Meta, and again, like I said, the brands who are still in the 0 to 1, 1 to 10 journey. After that, the marketing mix evolves. So then you can't just rely on one or two platforms. So it's different. But if you're, I think you have to be clear with who are you servicing. 0 to 1, 1 to 10, 10 to 100. I think all three need different business models today. So if you are starting performance marketing, like good luck. I think that wave is gone. But another important thing which is also happening is that media and performance is getting very blurry, right? And I think people who can solve for media is becoming even lesser, because I don't think people teach media buying as much as they have been teaching performance in the last 4 or 5 years or so. And I think that also has a critical role to play, because if you understand media buying, you actually understand creative. Because if you go to authentic media planners and media buyers, they are people who expertise is on large budget scale, the likes of a Group M or of that nature, and they know how to fit a creative for a channel and multiple channels and innovate on that. So that skill is going. So if you can sort of pick up maybe a little bit of that, as well as performance, and merge all of that into a consulting model of I can best advise you on how to spend your money, I feel there is a little bit of a opportunity that lies there, and they will see you differently than
makes
as
sense.
dashboard. Yeah, a business. That's the answer, to be very honest. That's where things are going.
Cool.
Cool.
Good chat.
8-5, Deepan. I have
Almost on time.
I'm sorry, I've
No, it's okay.
overshot by 5 minutes. This is extra time.